All right, next up, Alligator 2, The Mutation. Now, I already had said in my last review that I don't have a ton to say about this movie because the biggest crime of this movie is that it's just fucking uneventful and kind of boring, and it's just not a ton happens. And the villain, like outside of the alligator itself, is Steve Railsback character, pointless. I legitimately have nothing to say out about his character except for that his storyline is pointless. I just don't see a purpose for it in this movie. Like they're sticking it to the man and they're getting back at the guy who's corrupting their town and this and but it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't really play into anything. Yes, he's responsible for it. They're dumping these chemicals and he has some, real estate thing that he wants to get done because of it and he's pushing this fair and no one's it's just so lame and uninteresting and doesn't really do anything, and he keeps trying to play like he's tough, like he's got all this backup and he's this big tough mob guy, but these like Mexican gangster dudes come in and they're never really challenged. Nothing really happened. He's like, don't want to mess with me. And it's like, why? We never get to see why no one wants to mess with him. It's just implied. It's all implied. Everything in the background is implied with absolutely no capitalization, no, action. He's all talk in this movie. It's really silly. And it's a waste because I like Steve Railsback as a character, as an actor. I think he's cool. He's freaking... Dwayne Barry, okay, from the X-Files. So, and if of course, he's also other stuff like Deranged, right? That's him, or is it? He played Ed Gein, right? No, it wasn't. Yeah, Ed Gein. Yeah, Deranged. All right, so we got Dee Wallace in this, so it's great to see her. The opening title card of this, I think they stole from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I kept expecting it to start being like Teenage Mutant Ninja Gator. That would have been amazing if they did that. This has just a much lower quality feel to it. It feels like a straight to video release. It's like 8 years later. And okay, here's the weird thing about the movie. So the main detective's name in this movie is David, and he's married to a woman who is a scientist and expert on alligators. So I was like, oh, this is a sequel. How cool. Like, this is them later on. Like, they got married and they're together still and they have this amazing, like, they have a kid. And nope, not them. You still name your character the same thing. So I think this script was originally written. I mean, I can only imagine. I'm not fucking being smart here. It just makes sense. They wrote this to be a sequel with Robert Foster and her, and they, years later, they have a kid together and they're married and everything. And then they couldn't get it, and then they recast it, and then decided, no, we'll just, but like, change the name. And yet again, does she really need to be a scientist in this? Does she? She could just be his wife. She could just be a smart lady. Like, it's not necessary. It's not like she comes up with some compound that's like, this is what's gonna kill. Like, it's so pointless. I just don't understand it. But it is what it is. Doesn't matter. All right. She is smart enough, though, to play a tape recorder downstairs with just the right amount of time for when her husband walks into the room, her voice is on the tape, and he'll walk in and hear it in that exact moment. But she would have had to press play on that thing like an hour ago when she left the house to take her kid to school and go to work or whatever she's doing while he slept. So he would just come down and then it would be like, surprise, as she came into the thing. So the timing on that is extremely convenient. And then there's a tape waiting for him. And the entire time in the tape, she just makes like sexual innuendos of sucking his dick later that night in front of the kid. And you're like, I'm pretty sure this kid, even if he can't figure it out now, he's probably going to figure it out in a couple of years and be like, wait, what was my mom doing? It kind of reminds me of like the Conan Red Sonja thing, where you had Arnold Schwarzenegger as Conan in Conan the Barbarian and the Destroyer, and then you make Red Sonja, who hangs out with Conan and Schwarzenegger was supposed to be Conan in the movie, and they couldn't get the rights or some bullshit, so they put him in there anyway and just called him a different name. And it's like, why not just not ever say his name and let people think he's Conan? Like, he's Conan. That's how I see it. Even though the character's a little different, whatever, I don't care. That is Conan. You have fucking Schwarzenegger there with Red Sonja. It's Conan, period. Then after that, you've got, I don't know. Like, I feel like just change the names and or just make it recast. Fuck it. Just say it's the same characters. It doesn't matter. Why does it? I don't know. This makes no sense to me. All right, moving on. Because they confirm that the original never even happened, because he's like, could this happen? Could an alligator live in the sewers and this and that? It's almost like a remake. That's what this feels like. It feels like a soft reboot that they just called 2. Almost like Evil Dead 2, where you're like, is it a remake or is it a sequel? Because he's like, could this happen? And she's like, well, I mean, there's been reports of it happening in New York, but nothing like this, nothing that size. And so I'm like, I don't understand how. I just, like, why? Like, like, I just don't get it. It blows my mind. So, and I did like Hodges, though, okay? I'll give some praise to the movie in places. I really liked Hodges as a character. I thought that he was a very charismatic guy, much like the first one. And I was impressed with him. And so, as this movie went on, I was like, he's really the saving grace of the movie. He's fun, and the character is good. But outside of that, everything else is really lame. The alligator itself is terrible. And I'm just like, oh my good God, what is up with this guy? And then talk about a forced relationship in this movie, as we were talking about in the last one, where I was like, I felt like it was a little bit forced. I was like, you're kidding me, right? Like, this deputy, or this cop and the mayor's daughter, and his pickup line where he's just like, oh, you got a real good backyard or something. Really? That worked? BS. No way. And then we get a Kane Hodder appearance here for like a minute. And then they throw dynamite down there. It doesn't even phase the thing. I kept thinking like there was going to be a mutation, that there was going to be, like, it was going to get bigger or something was going to happen. It was going to be nothing. Just a regular old Croc. And in all the scenes where you see the thing, it looks like a normal size alligator. I don't even understand what's going on here. It's not an upgrade. It's not like Jaws where it gets 5 feet bigger each movie. This one's just looks like a regular alligator. Alligators are terrifying, don't get me wrong, but if you're going to make a mutation, and it's going to be the next big thing after the 35, 40-foot one in the first one, I did not feel like this one was bigger. I felt like this one was much smaller and not really all that menacing. So, I don't know. And then bomb doesn't go off. It has a bomb in its belly, so it kind of reminds me of something like Jaws 3, where the guy has like a grenade in its mouth. And some more tail whipping. Hey, the tail whip back. The chomp whip is back. Good to see that. And then, yeah, just like in the movie Grizzly, a helicopter arrives, and there is just a bazooka on board, and they grab it, and they shoot it at the gator and blow it up. How convenient. It was like, well, we don't know how to end this, so bazookas! Just grab a bazooka. So, yet again. But there is a good message in this of, this guy who really wants to quit smoking, and he figures out how to do so by defeating a semi-giant alligator, and then he decides, that's it for me. I want to live the rest of my life because I survived this ordeal. But I never really felt like, I don't know, I never really felt like he was in danger all that much. He just seemed like a random cop that got wind of this and went and grabbed a bazooka and blew it up. It wasn't like the first one where he was trapped down in the sewers with it, and there was all this, the tire was on the sewer lid, and there was all this tension, and I liked the character, but everything else could have went. And that's all I have to say about that. So anyways, I got to go take my kids jet skiing. If you couldn't hear, they kept trying to interrupt, and they were like, Dad, come on, it's time to go. And I was like trying to ignore it. That's why I was like stumbling over myself a little bit, like, give me 2 more minutes. All right, guys, I got to go. Adios.